Because for Ellen, she went from fat-shaming a kid to terrorizing a whole show staff. That sounds like an evil kind of progression, and not something you're sorry for. You're just sorry you got caught. And there you have it, a look at Ellen's most recent allegations and how it all lines up with what has been going on with her show. Which of these acts do you find the most terrible? Do you think that Ellen will ever? As always, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
From like Chinese takeout later, I'm gonna say Ellen said that it was way okay to do that.
It is.
Great.
I mean, you're gonna be fatter than this, but that's, I mean,
But in light of all the things being said about her, one producer from Australia has revealed a very dark side to how she handles being a guest. Neil Breen, who worked as a producer when Ellen appeared on Australia's Today Show, said she left her staff on his program, walking on eggshells around her, which is not something anyone should do when they're a guest on a TV show. Just saying. He claimed Ellen's staff were the only ones who were allowed to interact with her, and they dictated everything from seating to lighting to how the interview would work. This is a very disturbing thing to hear. If it was her show, then yeah, you could make that argument, but it wasn't her show, and she wasn't even in her own country. This was in Australia, and things obviously worked a certain way down there that Ellen should have respected, yet her and her crew made it seem like they were the ones in charge. The producer called us aside and said, "Now Neil, no one talks to Ellen. You don't talk to her, you don't approach her, you don't look at her." He added, "She'll come in, she'll sit down, she'll talk to Richard, and then Ellen will leave." And I sort of said, "Are you fair dinkum? I can't look at her?" I found the whole thing bizarre. Breen said that he had to ask Ellen's staff to stop laughing at her jokes because it was interrupting the recording. I have no idea whether she's a nice person or not. I wouldn't have a clue, he added, but I can tell you the people who work with her walked on eggshells the whole time. Where the sleighs didn't stop there. In short, Ellen decided to pull a literal cheap move and go hire non-union workers to help run her show, with a few exceptions like her DJ, and not hire the staff that were for her show to do her show. They were not happy about this at all and spoke out about it, which helped bring in even more stories about Ellen, about what Ellen is really like behind the scenes. Number 3, mistreatment of her staff part 2. But ironically, even before the pandemic hit, there was word that working at the Ellen show was anything but fun, including one anonymous employee saying that Ellen treated the staff like peasants, and backed that up by noting how Ellen would barely talk to the support staff outside of producers, would be incredibly cold backstage, sometimes wouldn't fill in staff on important changes to the show, would incite competition amongst the workers for her own amusement, and then would only take a select few to parties that were supposed to be for the whole staff to come, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, Ellen isn't the best boss ever, despite what you might think. Many employees have stepped and told some absolutely horrid stories about Ellen and how things go on her show. And it's not just Ellen who does the harm, it's her producers as well. Number 2, mistreatment of the staff part 3. If you think it's just one or two people who are complaining about Ellen, you would be wrong, because over the last several months, many people have come forward and spoken out about Ellen, including a massive expose about the show via BuzzFeed, who gathered many anonymous ex-employees to speak out on Ellen, the executive producers, and the environment that they created. For example, the mantra of the show and its staff is to be kind, but one ex-worker had some critical thoughts on that. If you've been paying attention over the last several months, you'll know that Ellen Degeneres has had a ton of accusations thrown at her because of the workplace environment that has been run on her daytime talk show, including new reports from the early part of her career where she apparently was fat-shaming kids. We're there to do an interview to promote what she's doing, but you can't look at her? Someone get real. And this is just one of many cases and stories that have put Ellen in the light that isn't exactly flattering, because when you're a terror on a show, when you're a guest, what do you think she does when you're on her show? And she's the host with the sway and control over pretty much everything. Number 4, mistreatment of staff part 1. So where exactly do we start in terms of Ellen mistreating her staff? Let's start with an easy one that honestly affected all of us around the globe, the pandemic. Yes, when this hit the United States, it set off a ripple effect that is still going to this day, unfortunately, and all walks of life were hit. And yes, that included Ellen DeGeneres and her show, because like many shows that happen every day, it's hard to do a show with a live audience and staff without getting people sick. Thus, it was stopped at first, until Ellen could get a setup in her own home, not unlike many other show hosts. However, where the mistreatment comes in, though, is via the lack of communication with her staff in regards to pay, work, and more. Things people need to know during the worst pandemic in generations, but Ellen kept things close to the chest, and her executive producers did as well until word got out about it, and finally things were done. But then came to daytime TV after becoming an icon for the LGBTQ+ community after coming out on her former sitcom. Ellen had some big shoes to fill, mainly in that Ellen came on as Oprah was entering the final run of her career that lasted until 2011, but we digress. The point is, Ellen was meant to be the next big thing in daytime TV, so not unlike certain other hosts, she went and thought outside the box to try and make her show special. You'll remember her dancing phase and how she plays a lot of games on her show, but one of the biggest things that she did and does is have kids on her show that are breaking the mold in their own way, including ones that have fully functional businesses that are making serious money. Yeah, kids are doing doing that, and it's really cool. But this in turn is showing a major problem with Ellen, because while she clearly does dig these kids in some ways, as she brings them on her show, the way she treated Ben when he was a child proves that she's not above picking on them endlessly in order to get jollies. So let's ask the question, has Ellen gone and insulted even more kids while on the show, and we've just never heard about it? It may seem like an odd question, but it's an honest one. Ellen has proven in many ways, and in many cases, to be a person who wants to do things her way or else. Need an example? We got you right here. Number 5, her time down under. As a massive star, you would expect Ellen to travel the world and go to various places to promote her work, and indeed she has done just that. That be kind bolt only happens when the cameras are on. It's all for show, one former employee told BuzzFeed News. I know they give money to people and help them out, but it's for show. Very harsh words indeed, but sadly it doesn't stop there, because there were also allegations of racist behavior on the set, including several African American women, noting that they were made fun of by writers and producers at times because of their color, and no one defended them. They were also talked down to when trying to make changes to the workplace to make it less toxic. Whenever I brought up an issue to my white male boss, he would bring up some random story about some random black friend that he had and how they managed to get over stuff. She said he would use his black friend as some way to say, I understand your struggle, but it was all performative bolt. But sadly, that's not all. The former employee said she was also called into a meeting with executive producer Ed Glavin, where she was reprimanded for her objections to the term spirit animal, asking for a raise, and suggesting employees on the show receive diversity and inclusion training. He said that I was walking around looking resentful and angry, she said. She left the show and never came back, and honestly, can you blame her after all that she went through? Number 1, the producers and Ellen's apology. Just as insulting as that, though, is that when the team behind the show made a statement, it was incredibly insulting. Here's what they said. Over the course of nearly 2 decades, 3,000 episodes, and employing over 1,000 staff members, we've strived to create an open, safe, and inclusive work environment. We're truly heartbroken and sorry to learn that even one person in our production family has had a negative experience. The statement read, it's not who we are and not who we strive to be, and not the mission Ellen has set for us. The statement continued, for the record, the day-to-day responsibility of the Ellen Show is completely on us. We take all of this very seriously, and we realize, as many in the world are learning, that we need to do better, are committed to do better, and we will do better. Ellen also made a statement by saying that she failed in keeping a happy work environment and that she felt bad for what everyone went through. But let's be honest, do they really mean it? Because given all the things that they put people through, given all the attacks and insults and the toxic culture they raised, are they really sorry?